name is Ehsan from Consulting Firm Ltd. Today I'm back with another topic, and today I want to talk about change management in organizational aspect. Basically, I will go step by step. As I stated that I'll discuss 3 things in this presentation. First of all, why and what is change management actually exist for the organizational aspect. Then what are the core principles of change management and why it is actually important for change management, right? So without further ado, let's get started with the presentation first of all. So let's get to know what is change management. Actually, change management is a systematic approach for the transition or transformation of an organization to a certain extent. And I like to keep it very simple that, business environment is very dynamic. It is not stable and everybody knows about it. If we stick to one decision, one thing for 10 years, the organization is already old 10 years. And if you continue to change and innovate things and implement that and get output, that you are young enough to compete in today's market. That's why, 100 years old organizations still, they feel they're young because they're changing, moving stones, right? They're not staying in one place. So that is the introduction of change management. But changes are always not the happiest moment for people. Because, in an organization, it's made of 3 things. The most important thing is people, human resource. The most replicatable thing in an organization is a human resource, right? You cannot, or any other organization, maybe they're our competitor, they cannot replicate us and we cannot replicate them. So this is very, very unique thing to the certain organization. So, but the changes are basically coming for the people actually, and people don't want to change because there's a thing called comfort zone. We don't want to leave our comfort zone. Basically, that is the mindset of human being naturally. So there is a resistance of change, right? So I want to give an example that how we resist our changes. For example, we live in a house, maybe a shared house. We live 3 people, works in different places. Tomorrow I have a presentation, maybe international presentation, very important for my career. And on the other room, somebody's playing loud music, right? But I cannot do anything with that because I cannot drive that volume down. I don't have the control to down the volume and reduce the volume and stay in my comfort zone. Then the problem arises here that when I cannot change it by myself, but I have to adopt. This kind of thing actually resists in predetermination that we don't want to change ourselves. If things happen like that, we cannot change. So we don't want to be there. We want to stay in our comfort zone. So that's why in an organization, change management has been introduced. Maybe almost, this is not something very new thing, but still for business, maybe 50 or 70 years ago, it has been practiced all over the world. And for more clarification for change management, why it is actually needed, actually think about a merger or acquisition. For example, 2 big organizations, Google and Microsoft, they are merging, though this is a dream for the world, right? But if it happens, 2 CEOs of the biggest giant organization, what happens? Who will be the CEO? One have to sacrifice themselves. So the management needs to implement those changes, the hierarchy, the organizational structure, the reporting system, the process they worked previously, and now how they will work, everything needs to be changed, right? So this is why the change management actually exists in organization, right? So let's get to know that what are the 4 principles of change management. What are those things that we need to keep in mind while implementing or planning for change, right? There are 4 principles. First of all, understand the change. I'll describe one by one. First, let me go through this 4. Then plan the change, right? Then implement, and then communicate the change. If I describe one by one, first of all, understand. We have to understand why we need to change. I give you some examples here. Just think about our organization. Starting from your joining date till now, you have changes. You've seen many changes, minor changes, big changes, drastic changes, process innovation, process changes, right? a lot of changes you have seen. So why management decided we have to change, or we have to step into different opinion? Why? So the first question is why we need to change. Maybe this is for profitability. Maybe this is for incremental market share in the market because there are more share, but you cannot get it. Maybe clients are not happy, so we have to change the procedure of reporting, or maybe customer service or something like that. So we changed ourselves and we innovated a new system for ourselves. So the first question is why we need to change our internal things, right? Then plan. While we understand why it's needed, who will be affected, what are the changes we'll make, and what happens if we don't take the decision of changing. This is very important, by the way. You have to understand what happens if we don't make the change. What happens if we don't step into the change right now? That is the consequences. For example, the world is shifting at a very great speed, but we don't want to change. We want to keep physical records and something like that. Maybe we are not coping up with the technology, or maybe systems that current organizations are following. We are already backdated, right? So we have to understand first of all. Then we have to plan according to that how we actually go there, reach that location or reach that destination that we understood first of all, that why we need to change. So the planning stage comes here, and the planning totally depends on organization itself. Different organization has different motives of their changes. So it totally depends on those management who actually wants to change, right? So here we can discuss some things. For example, Backhead. I read one thing from Backhead that they say that changes are effective only that time when the existing process are outdated, right? Or it is uncomfortable enough to follow the current procedures, then it's the prime time to shift or to change. Right? So based on this, we create implementation plan. This is the most important thing. Often we decide that we'll be changing this, we'll be improving this, but the implementation, the execution, it doesn't happen. Maybe we think about A, the output is B, the result is no, 0, right? So implementation. But the implementation, I talked about resistance, and what is resistance? People don't want to change. But in my organization, I have a lot of people, and if they don't understand my plan A, they'll do B, C, D, right? So they have to understand my things. They have to understand if I'm top management, by the way, because the decisions are coming from top management, right? So how we can implement the exact strategy, the exact things that we want to do, implement in our organization. So I have drawn a curve, right? You can see now. If you think about this axis is performance, and this is time, and this is the curve, right? So what happens is the performance level when we didn't initiated the change was here, right? Maybe it is 80, right? 80. So my organization, my employees, they think that 80%, I'm happy with that because I don't want to, break out my things. So I'm happy with it. But the management knows, because since they have a higher vision, right? So they can see 360 degree or more than the subordinates. They know that there are more opportunities here, 90%. They can achieve 100%, but there are some tiny change or shifts, something like that. So what they decide, say they make some plan based on their understanding, and now they want to implement. But here, what happens to the people? They deny. Basically, most of the people deny that, no, we are fine. I think this change is not important. Most of the people, right? So what happens, the productivity of the organization, or the performance, in other words, it decreases drastically here. And people get depression. People get depression here. Maybe it's 40 now, right? And this is time. Eventually, after implementing the changes, we see a performance drop. And for the certain period, we think that this is not working. But after some time, this curve is actually skyrocketing because people are here, they're adapting to the changes. And if I draw a line here, you see, my straight line is not that straight, by the way. So what happens here is they accept. And when they accept mentally, it automatically becomes 80% again. Right? You see the changes? After the changes, the productivity is 80% again. And what happens here? They get to see or they discover something new. All right, that this change is actually, making some changes, or this is actually improving, right? Because they are going through this transition or this process. So it becomes 90%, 100%. And after that, if they integrate with the changes, it becomes 120% the performance. Right? So this is how the implementation of changes actually take place. Right? So then I want to talk about communicate. Once you implement, actually, I'm keeping this terms very short because I just wanted to introduce this change management to you all. If I describe a lot of things, maybe you just lost why we started and how we ended. Right? So now I want to discuss the fourth principle, that's communicate. Communication. For example, my changes are the new innovation or strategies. Right? We implemented the changes. What are the outcomes? We have to measure the performance. We have to, standardize a certain level of performance. Then we have to measure with the previous one, and then we have to give feedback to the employees that you or we did like this, and now we are doing like this. This is the improvement. This is communication. We have to keep it very simple, very clear words that people can actually understand our changes. Many times it has been seen that in organization, people or top management take decisions that lower management doesn't understand. That's why, first of all, they don't want to adopt the changes, right? Because they don't see what is above the mountain, right? The person standing on top of the mountain, they have a higher vision. But the person, if point A and point B, this is the ground and this is the mountain, they have a higher vision, right? They can see, a lot of area than the person standing here. So initially, they don't understand the changes. So this process after implementation, we have to communicate with them. Right? We have to make them understand. After this procedure, after this implementation, this happened. And this in future we'll be doing. This is how the communication works for the change management. Okay. And after this fourth principle, I want to discuss that what kind of change management we actually can implement in our organization. Because the types that I have written here, one is evolution. Evolution starts when we start our organization in the introduction phase in our business life cycle. What happens there is, if I draw business life cycle, you can understand how the evolution actually works. This is introduction, right? So if an organization is started, there's an employee. Maybe one or two, that's fine, but there is an employee, right? When the employee started, they started gaining knowledge because they have entrepreneurial mindset and they know how to, they actually do all the stuff by themselves. So they're starting getting knowledge, experience, skills they're gathering. So that if evolution, the evolution, with the time it evolves. That means with the time it gets measured. That is evolution. So in an organization, if any evolutionary change is needed, that is called evolution. For example, if our human resource needs to change the way they, maybe it's more like qualitative things, behaviors, cultures, norms, practices in an organization. If they wanted to change it, they have to follow the evolution. What was the best practice? What was the best time that we had with our behavior, with our qualitative data? We can analyze that and we can change those implementation, change those things and implement that in our organization. Revolution, the next type. Revolutionary, by listening to revolution, you can imagine a lot of things, right? There's a revolution, industrial revolution, a lot of other revolution. A drastic change has been done throughout the organization. For example, the name of the designation has been changed all over the organization. Previously, it was executive, junior executive, something like that. Now it's totally consultant. For example, accounts consultant, tax rate consultant, like that. It's a change. But this kind of change this is actually very easy to adopt. We can adopt it very easily because there is no such change without a designation. But if the job description is changed drastically, it's revolutionary. If the process that we currently work changed, that is revolutionary. Right? So the big things or the big or drastic changes in an organization, that is revolutionary change. But the last one that is most practiced currently, that is organized change. Organized change means we first of all understand the needs because the environment of business is changing drastically every day. Because, for example, coronavirus, it came up. Nobody knew about it. So what we had to do, we couldn't come to our office, right? But we had to operate our daily operations. So we went to our home with our laptops, with computers, all the technologies at home. We started working and we did it, right? Now, it hasn't become a standard. In many organizations, they're looking for remote people. They're not looking for physical attendance, really, because they go through the changes and they know that the performance can be increased if we can follow these stages. This is also a learning for an organization if the changes take place, right? So what is organized? For example, now we know a lot of things. So we understand the demand of the market. Now we want to plan something and then we want to implement that, and that is organized change. And then we have to manage the changes, right? But after all of this, I want to remind you again that why it is actually important. Up to now, I think you understand, or it's very clear that if we deny the change management, we deny a lot of things. Because if we don't try to focus on the managed change, it will become unmanaged change. The changes that we cannot even bring back again, right? So first of all, it actually improves the time and resources in your organization. Then it improves the communication between you and top management and employees, the good relations. And then it helps us to come up with the market dynamics, with competitors, step ahead of our competition, right? We can innovate things, we can save our time, provide better, service to our customers, happy customers, and we can grow our organization and become a visionary company in the near future. And that's all about this change management things. And I hope that you understand something about change management. And this topic we can discuss even later on, because there are some individual things, case studies specific to industries, how they changed and how they are now doing, right? We see a lot of case studies based on that. And we have to learn from their mistakes and we have to implement those changes right away so that we can avoid those changes, right? So I want to wrap up this presentation with this thing that today we understood what is change management, the 4 principles, and why it's important in our organization, and how the implementation actually works. What are the performance criteria throughout the transition between plan A and plan B, maybe the changes you can call, and the importance finally. Thank you very much for listening to our presentation.